There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine, dance through a meadow, or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom, but don't see their dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. There's joy all around us, why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air.
I'm going to start with the Rays of the One Light reading. These are weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriya-yoga. This is week 2. Did God create the universe or become it? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 1, contains a passage that explains the essential truth that creation is a process of becoming. The universe is not separate from God the Creator, but a part of Him, even as our own dream creations during sleep are figments of our consciousness. God's is the life. God's the reality. Not a melody could be composed, not a poem written, were the melody and the poem not already there, simply waiting to be expressed. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Ego-directed desire is like static. It distorts the radioed messages of infinity. But the pristine impulse from the divine, undistorted by limitation and delusion, is the life that gives rise to all that is. As the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, I am the fluidity of water. I am the silver light of the moon and the golden light of the sun. I am the Om chanted in all the Vedas, the cosmic sound moving as if soundlessly through the ether. I am the manliness of men. I am the good, sweet smell of the moist earth. I am the luminescence of fire, the sustaining life of all living creatures. I am self-offering in those who would expand their little lives into cosmic life. O Arjuna, know me as the eternal seed of all creatures. In the perceptive, I am their perception. In the great, I am their greatness. In the glorious, it is I who am their glory. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. There's a wonderful word we get from the Indian scriptures, which is Satchidananda. It's a name for God. Loosely translated, it means ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. And Yogananda explains to us that that was what all there was at one point. That there was just that bliss, that ever new bliss. And from that bliss, because there was nothing else but that bliss, was manifested this whole universe. All of creation, every atom in our body, every thought that we think. Consciousness is the foundation of all of it, that conscious bliss. This universe is made of bliss. We are made of bliss. But it's just the delusion that tricks us into thinking otherwise. But that bliss, Yogananda said, God wanted to enjoy himself through many. But there was just him, just the one bliss. So what could he do? Well, he had to create some sense of separateness, some sense of other, some individuality. So he had to create duality. He had to be able to enjoy himself through many. So that duality, though, it needs something to show itself. It's said that when God first created the universe, he created it a little too well, too perfectly. And so the beings he created realized that God was illuminating this existence, this creation, and that God was the point of all of it. And so they sat in a meditation and they merged back with the Creator, and it was all over pretty quickly. And God said, well, that's not going to work very well. So I got to do something a little bit deeper here. I got to go a little layer stronger. And so God realized that he needed to create some duality, some delusion, light and dark, and pleasure and pain, and the whole gamut of dualistic things that we find in this world. And Maya, this whole illusion of this creation as being what's real, as being our reality. Yogananda explains and it says, gives an analogy of the cosmic dream movie that we're all explaining. He says, when you're watching a movie, and in the theater, you go to the theater, it's all dark, and you see the movie up on the screen. If you look back and you look at the projector, it starts out as light. It's just light. But then it hits the film, and then it's projected as lights and shadow, the duality that allows us to see the movie that we want to see. If it was just light, you wouldn't be able to see anything. It would just be this blinding light. There'd be no movie to really view. There wouldn't be anything. But because there's a filter, so to speak, that goes through the movie projector, then we see the light and the shadow. We see this story play out. And we go into the theater and we know it's not real. We know it's just a movie. But how many of you have cried during a movie? Or laughed out loud uncontrollably? Or gotten caught in the circumstances of the characters and felt bad or felt happy for them? And we know it's not real, but yet somehow it's convincing enough to us that we experience these feelings and these things during the movie. And that's just light and sound. Those are just two of our senses. This world that we live in are all five senses, and 3D, not 2D, and God has made it seem very, very realistic. And so we live our lives in this movie, in this cosmic motion picture that God has created, and he's the director, and he's the writer, and he's the production assistant, and all of it. He's the actors, and he's the audience. And the movie gets played out. And we identify so strongly with our character, don't we? I remember one time near the end of Swami's life, this is kind of touching to me. I remember being there, and I forget what the event was, but it was a talk that he was giving at the Expanding Light. And he said something that kind of surprised me. He said, I've come to realize that Swami Kriya-yoga is nothing. He's totally unimportant. And I had this kind of reaction, and there's a lot of people in the room had the reaction too, of like, what? No, don't say that. You're definitely important to us, and it's important what you're doing and who you are. But then I came to understand what he meant, what he was saying. He was saying that Swami Kriya-yoga, as this individual person, as an ego, is completely unimportant. That the only thing that was important was that divine light that was shining through him. And it's easy for us to confuse the things that we do and the things that matter in this world as these individual expressions, and to think, oh, I did this and I did that, and forget that it all comes from that divine bliss that manifested everything, that came into this world, that gave us life, that sustains us in every heartbeat, that digests the food. How many of you consciously digest the food in your stomach, or beat your heart, or allow all the neurons to move in your brain and think those thoughts? It just happens. It's the life of God within you that animates you every moment, and we think we're doing it all. Yogananda said, thoughts are universally rooted, not individually rooted. And it comes back to that understanding that God created everything out of his being. He had to first create thought. There was this consciousness, but there first had to be the creation of thoughts. The thought comes first, and then energy, and then the physical reality. It's just that instance, if you're going to try to move your arm, you first have to have the thought that you're going to move your arm, and then send energy to your arm, and then your arm moves in the physical world. If you want to move your arm, but there's no thought of moving your arm's not going to move. Or if you have the thought, but there's no energy put to your arm, then your arm's still not going to move. It all happens in succession, but it happens so quickly in this world that we just don't think about it. But that's how everything comes into manifestation. There's first the thought, and then energy, and then the physical world. Have you ever had a dream that seemed real? Swami Kriya-yoga talked about a dream he had once where he was walking around in the dream, and all of a sudden he started to fly. And he thought about it for a second, and he said, well, this is strange. People don't normally fly. And he sat down, he thought it all through, and he reasoned it out. And he finally came to the conclusion that, no, this was fine, this was real, it was just doing something that was unusual. And how convincing it is. We can convince ourselves of the reality of anything, almost, through reason. But that's the nature of dreams, is when we realize that we're not just creating the fabric of the dream, kind of the material aspects of the dream, but we're also creating the feelings that we have. We're creating the consciousness of the dream. We're creating the consciousness we have in the dream. And all of that is something that we create in our own mind when we go to sleep. And we accept it as something that is natural. It's just a dream. But it's the same thing that God does when he dreams this universe. He not only creates the thoughts and the energy and the matter, he creates the consciousness that pervades all of this. And we tap into it. We tap into the consciousness of being deluded in this world and thinking that it's all real. It's all part of it's all part of Maya. It's all part of this duality. And we have to learn to not identify with it so much. It's hard. It's very convincing dream. But the more we can step outside of it and realize that it's all just a play, it's all just a dream, the more we can feel what's real behind the dream. The playwright, a good playwright, knows that there needs to be conflict in the dream, in the play, in whatever they're writing. And a good playwright will be committed to writing the good characters and the bad characters equally well. And they'll write the characters that have their issues and the different things. And he'll, if the playwright is good, that person will make it very convincing, right? If it's very superficial, we'll say, well, it wasn't written very well. It was just kind of a superficial thing. But if they goes into the detail, right, and gets it right, gets the villain right, and that person was really a villain, then we say, oh, what a wonderful play. Wasn't it really well done? But why was it well done? Because the playwright knows that in creating a good villain, that when the hero triumphs, it'll be that much sweeter. It'll be that much more beautiful, won't it? If we went to a movie and it was short, 10 minutes long, and it was all just happy and smiles, we wouldn't think it was very good, right? It's because there's the conflict. It's because there's something that we're striving for. It's because there's often a yearning for some accomplishment that then when that happens, it's that much sweeter. And God created this world knowing that we were going to eventually come back to him. That was the inevitable conclusion of all of this. And he planted within us the need for happiness, the need for satisfaction. And there's often the question, well, why did God why does God allow so much suffering? This is something that you might hear atheists bring up, and they say, well, I can't believe that there's a God if he allows all the suffering and all the sorrow. And there's a few different ways we can answer that. One is a quote from Sri Yukteswar. He says, leave a few questions to be answered by the divine, which I thought was a little cursory there. But it's true, there is an aspect of it which you can think about, which is it's hard to explain some of the nuances of this creation with our limited perspective. It's like a child trying to understand why their father is leaving and going to work and just leaving them, and that he has to go to work. A young child may not really get the concept of why the father has to leave. They just know that the father's leaving, and they don't want him to leave. And in the same way, we may not fully understand all of the reasons for all of this creation and everything that we have to go through. But we have to have faith in that God knows what God is doing. But it does come back to that aspect of God wanting to enjoy himself through us. That there is that. It's interesting, the affirmations and the topics, they're not accidents. They were all designed in the right way. And it's interesting that this topic today, did God create the universe, which can be somewhat philosophical, was paired up with love, the affirmation for love. And I was just thinking about it as we were doing the affirmation. It's really part and parcel of the fact that this whole creation and the whole aspect of God's manifesting this creation is an act of love. It's an act of love, everything that he created. Because in infinity, it all comes and goes so quickly. And before you know it, we're in bliss with God. It's the child, right, that thinks that things are going too slowly. Like, when's dinner going to be ready? Oh, it'll be 5 minutes, honey. Oh, it's taking so long, right? Another 30 seconds later, is dinner ready yet? No, it's 4.5 more minutes, Oh, gosh. And they're suffering because they're so hungry and they want dinner, right? And we just look at the child and we go, oh, they just need to have better perspective, right? They just need to be patient. But what of us? We sit here in this world and we think, wow, why can't I find God, Why does it have to take so long, And Yogananda had an interesting comment on that. He said, when you say, when will I find God, you are not a devotee. It seems kind of harsh. But he said, say, I have him already. You have him already. He is within you and all around you. He is animating your life. That cosmic projector of light is projecting you right now. Behind the fringe of your mind is God. In every thought that you think is God. He's animating every aspect of our life. But we forget. We forget. But there's a beautiful word called smriti. It means divine memory. And what it means is that there's a memory that we know and that we have of our divinity. In that beginning, when there was just ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new bliss, we were there as a part of God. And God creating this universe and creating individuality, a piece of that cloth of the divine became our soul, an individualized expression of divine consciousness. And then it was encapsulated in all of these, the astrocausal and astral and physical bodies, and deluded into thinking all of this was real. But that's who we are. Individualized expression of bliss. That's who we are. That's what we've always been. So you say, when will I have God? You are come from God. That is who we are. You can't say, I am God. You say, God animates this body. God thinks the thoughts through me. We're just so convinced otherwise. Master said, if you just had the thought with complete conviction that I had God, then you would be liberated. And one of his devotees at the time said, well, if I just thought it, I wouldn't be free, would I? And he said, well, you've answered your own question. Inherent in our acceptance of that is the thought that, it's probably not true. We have to get away from that convincing delusion that there's separateness. We have to understand that God knows we will come back to him, and he's just waiting. He's just waiting for us to embrace him. He's just waiting for us to open our hearts to him. But we can't get there with the mind. This is a very philosophical discussion, but it's not one that we can get there just from thinking about it. I can tell you these words, and I can explain to you that you have the divine within you. Like Christ said, the kingdom of God is within you. But they're just thoughts. They're just words. For the atheist who just thinks, well, you just say it, but that doesn't mean, how do I know that it's true? But yoga tells us you can experience God too. Then you know for certain. And then you know that God is with you through that experience. But we can't experience God without devotion. There's a quote from Yukteswar that I love. I love these quotes from the Gyan Avatar, the incarnation of wisdom. If you look at him, he's that second one there. It speaks of the kind of the stoicism. Yogananda said once when someone was talking about Yukteswar's love, and he said there were no love in those eyes. But he was somewhat being joking. Of course, he had love, but he was very stern with him, very much disciplined, and helped Yogananda become disciplined. But he also said you can't get one step. Well, here, I'll read until the heart's natural love has been developed, we cannot set even one foot before the other on the search for God. But God understands that too. He's created within us, that yearning for something meaningful, for something that is fulfilling. And we seek it everywhere. We seek it in everything we do, right? Whatever we're doing and we're putting energy into it, why are you doing that? Why do you go about your day? Why do you wake up in the morning? Because you think something that you're going to do is going to bring fulfillment to you. But how many things that we do bring lasting fulfillment? We want something that we think is going to be pleasurable. We eat some piece of chocolate and we think, oh, that's going to be nice, And we eat the chocolate and maybe it's nice. It's a nice chocolate. It's pleasurable. It satisfies the senses. And then it passes. And it's done. The chocolate's gone. Now what? We want to have some achievement, and we achieve, and then it's done. You graduate from high school, yay, and you throw the hat and everything, and then it's over with, and the next day, life goes on. And you get married, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful, and then the next day, life goes on. You have a birthday, and yay. You get a job, you accomplish things you wanted to accomplish, and then the next day, life goes on. These things don't last in this world. They're not lasting. They're not completely satisfying. It's illusory, and we keep running after the next thing, don't we? The next thing and the next thing. It's never really quite satisfying. Yogananda called it anguishing monotony, the anguishing monotony of this world, that we're constantly being disappointed and disappointed and disappointed. But it's built into the fabric of this creation. God knew what he was doing. God knew what he was doing. We're not disappointed by, by just coincidence. It's a part of this creation to help us realize that this world is not our home. Swami Kriya-yoga brings up an analogy when he says, you might live above the best restaurant in the world, and you can be given its menu, and you can be told how wonderful the chef is and the wonderful food that they create, and you can read all the reviews about it and everything. But until you're hungry, you're not going to go eat there. We need to develop that hunger. And when we're hungry, then we'll really seek God. And in that seeking, really seeking God, that's how we'll find him. When we realize that none of what we do in this world is ever going to bring us lasting fulfillment. And actually, it's not that we have to renounce all the things of the world. We just have to understand that any yearning in our heart, any yearning that you have, think of the yearnings that you have in your heart, the things that you want in your life. There's probably something that's on your mind right now, something you're wanting to achieve, something you're striving for. That any yearning in your heart, it all comes back down, really, to the yearning for God. Because why do we want it? We think it's going to bring us some fulfillment, which we will only find in God. So what we really need to understand and remember is that every single yearning in our heart, all the yearnings we have, are really yearning for God. And when we can understand that and transform and feel those yearnings as yearnings for God, then we can direct that towards God with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our soul, with all our strength. That's how we find God. That's how we get there. I wanted to read you something of Yogananda's to end, because we can walk through this world and realize or think that this world is cold and harsh and that we're alone, struggling. But God is always with us. This is called, I come to tell you all of Him. I come to tell you all of Him. See if I can get through it. I come to tell you all of Him and the way to encase Him in your bosom, and of the discipline which brings His grace. To those of you who have asked me to guide you to my beloved's presence, I will warn you through my silently talking mind, or speak to you through a gentle, significant glance, or whisper to you through my love, or loudly dissuade you when you stray away from Him. But when I shall become only a memory or a mental image or a silently speaking voice, when no earthly call will ever reveal my whereabouts in unplumbed space, when no shallow entreaty or stern centaurian command will bring an answer from me, I will smile in your mind when you are right, and when you are wrong, I will weep through my eyes, dimly peering at you in the dark, and weep through your eyes perchance. And I will whisper to you through your conscience. And I will reason with you through your reason. And I will love through your love. When you are able no longer to talk with me, read my whispers from of eternity. Eternally through that I will talk to you. Unknown, I will walk by your side and guard you with invisible arms. And as soon as you know my beloved and hear his voice in silence, you will know me again, more tangibly than you knew me in this earth plane. And yet, when I am only a dream to you, I will come to remind you that you too are not but a dream of his heavenly beloved. And when you know you are a dream, as I know now, we all will be ever awake in him.
Long I've called you, my Lord. Long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Long I've called you, my Lord. Long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to your